Just trying to see if I can get that Twitch chat going with it. Let me do a test message real quick. Okay, so that is going. It's just reset itself. So here we go. uG-Whear versus SuperCondomUser, the grand finals. $10,000 for first, $2,500 for second, and co-casted with uG-Whear. Enjoy, everyone. So thank you for joining us. We're here now at the grand finals of the CompUSA Gamefixx tournament with $7,500 on the line. First place was going to get $10,000, with second place getting $2,500. I have with me one of the competitors of that event, Daniel Murphy, whose name is uG-Whear, and he will be going up against SuperCondomUser, whose real name is Kevin, but we were fairly sure as a community that somebody else was actually playing under that handle at the time. So I'm going to go ahead and get us into the first game of that best of three that occurred, and hope you enjoy this unbroadcasted finals. For the first time ever, you're going to be able to see this in a stream format. So to start with, we do have SuperCondomUser as the yellow Terran here at the 3 o'clock position. And here at the, I believe this is the 9 o'clock position we have, if you will introduce yourself.
Yep. So it's uG-Whear here at the 9 o'clock position. And, hey, everybody. Sorry I can't attend the this event live, but I did really appreciate Steven, Blue Wolf, reaching out to me about this. Sounds like a really cool event, so sorry I can't be there in person. I was telling Steven, it's obviously been a long time, so my memory is pretty hazy about these games, right? 15 years ago. I told him I remembered that it was a Protoss versus Terran match on these positions, 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, but I actually couldn't remember if I was the Protoss or the Terran. So that's just a little bit to give you a sense of what we're dealing with here 15 years later.
Just a slightly hazy memory. Don't worry about it. It's all right. So we do also have one observer in this map itself, Knedrabo. I have no idea how to pronounce that. So they did actually have observers for the tournament referees occurring in this finals as well. It was an online event, so it was possible to cheat, and you had to have an observer to try to make sure things were on the up and up. And I'll go ahead and bring up some stats and introduce some of the competitors while they get their opening build orders here. So uG-Whear, as you can see from the accomplishments here, actually made 5th and 6th place in WCG 2001 Grand Finals. He was also 3rd place later on this year at the WCG USA 2002 that would allow him to go to the Grand Finals, which I believe were held in Korea. Is that correct?
Yes.
And his average APM of all the replays I have of him at this time period is 137. So that gives you an idea as to how fast he was moving and playing himself. So it looks like for the game we have a standard refactory going up, or refinery? Yeah, refinery. Along with the Terran barracks about to finish. And for uG-Whear's side, we have the Protoss Gateway with the Protoss Cybernetics Core underway. And while they continue up the tech tree, and while uG-Whear's probe starts to enter the ramp of SuperCondomUser, I'll introduce him. So SuperCondomUser was likely either Elki or Kenka. We're not 100% sure who it was that was playing under the account. The tournament was limited to North American players. And since SuperCondomUser was not a top-tier player himself, he ended up getting foreign help to try to help him win this tournament. The actual account owner, the Kevin who created the account itself, actually went 0-4 in WCG USA 2001 just a few months prior to this event. But here he is with his account in the Grand Finals. And the average APM of this user is 150. And that's an average APM with 2 games that I've played against the original SuperCondomUser who had a much slower APM. So it's actually higher than that if you take away those games that Kevin actually played himself. So I'll get back to the game here now. It looks like we have the Terran going with a double factory opening. And back at the Protoss base, we have a Dragoon out that's now going to deny the scouting of that Terran ACV any further to allow uG-Whear to start to branch off in his build order. and it looks like he's opening a Protoss robotics facility, which I think we had been talking before. You had mentioned was generally what you kind of remember always doing in this matchup, is trying to get a quick robo and a quick observer. Is that right?
Yes, I think it was pretty standard for me to do what I'm doing so far, and I believe that my when my probe found his base at 3 o'clock, his wall in was already secure, and so my probe didn't even get into the base, and so that could be one reason why I'm going for a robo facility, as I am, to get an observer in there as quick as possible.
It's also worth noting that Where normally would play Terran, Terran versus Protoss and Terran versus Zerg, but in the matchup against the Terran, he'd switch to Protoss. I don't know if you want to expand upon that at all and talk a little bit about why you would do that kind of race picking.
Yeah, I don't remember the reason. I mean, it certainly became my standard procedure to switch to Protoss when I was playing other Terran. I don't remember how that came about, but that was pretty standard for me at this point in time. So for whatever reason, I must have felt more comfortable playing Protoss against Terran rather than the mirror matchup of Terran versus Terran. So I mean, I think that, again, this is, a long time ago, but I think that a lot of my main matches, like important matches in this tournament versus the players I was most worried about losing to, probably were my Protoss versus their Terran. So I played Maynard, who was Terran, and I played Froz, who was Terran, and now SuperCondomUser, who's Terran. So I think that, this Protoss versus Terran arrangement was a pretty important one for this tournament.
So it looks like we have here SuperCondomUser setting up a bit of a contain outside of Where's base. And we have the observer up here that's going to go ahead and see that this is occurring. So it looks like you're trying to push that away, but you're kind of outnumbered here.
Yep, definitely don't want to lose any Dragoons if I can help it.
Oh no. And it looks like SuperCondomUser is putting his entire resources into this push. No expansion currently following that up. Just 2 facts of constantly producing units, and it looks like he's also putting up a bunker to really establish that defense there. So you have the range upgrade going, Proto Shuttle out, and otherwise just 3 gateways of units for yourself. I will go ahead and say that in this game itself, Where is playing with 141 APM, SuperCondomUser with 166. Neither player actually seemed to do a lot of redundant clicking. Where EAPM was 112 and SuperCondomUser is 121. So again, just to give people an idea as to the kind of level everybody was playing at in terms of their hand speed. It looks like we have an engineering bay going up, still just strong contain. So how did you come by your nickname?
Well, I remember that it was basically a word that I just made up. I remember that much. I mean, I don't remember how or why, but it was basically just a name that I made up as a proper name for a person that I thought was a cool name. And so I might have been thinking about, I like to read sci-fi fantasy novels, and it might have just been something I thought of as a cool character for a story or something. So I think it was something along those lines. So yeah, I didn't get the name from anywhere. I just sort of, came up with it, and for whatever reason stuck with that handle. It wasn't my first StarCraft handle, but it was one that I picked up pretty early on in my StarCraft time and stuck with. And in fact, my first StarCraft clan, I believe, was Blue Wolf's clan with the bracket dash Weir dash bracket.
Yeah, it was actually Clan United.
Okay. Okay.
So what did you think of your opponent's name? Did you go out and brag to all your friends about your upcoming match with SuperCondomUser?
Yeah, I wasn't offended by it or anything, but it was kind of a downer, to have an opponent with that name, because it did make it more awkward talking about it, talking about the match.
So it looks like you're going to be doing avoiding the containment that SuperCondomUser has tried to set up for you, and just going to try to find your own way around it by using a dropship with units that you've shuttled across to try to put pressure where the units aren't, which is pretty smart.
Yeah, and I got 3 Dark Templar on that shuttle, so this is I imagine I was pretty excited at this point because there was no detection there at all. And of course, spider mines are a pretty risky form of detection.
They are. They can easily backfire just as easy as they help. But they seem to be doing a good job of cleaning up your drop here, though you have done quite a good deal of damage. And it looks like for resources, he's only 55, you somehow have 78. That probe saturation is really good.
Yeah, I did. In terms of style, I mean, I considered myself more of a macro than a micro player, and I did try to pump out the units, pump out the workers, and so that's what's going on here, I guess. Would have lots of probes or lots of SCVs when I'm Terran.
So it looks like your push here is starting to be cleaned up, although at quite heavy cost to SuperCondomUser. So did you know at the time when you were playing him that SuperCondomUser was really dun somebody else?
I don't remember how confident I was, but I do remember having heard that that was the theory. Because, again, my memories are pretty vague of this, but I had just played Froz in the semifinals before playing SuperCondomUser, and so I remember messaging Froz during my match with SuperCondomUser, where I made some comment about, the identity of SuperCondomUser. So I remember being suspicious, that there was someone else playing for him, but I don't remember how confident I was in that judgment at that time. I myself did not know Kevin at all, so I myself did not have any experience to go on to sort of figure out for myself, whether or not it was him playing. So I just didn't know him before this.
So it looks like you're having another push here, avoiding again the blockade using a shuttle. It would have been smart if he had built some towers or I guess some missile turrets down here to try to stop this. But it looks like this is the way the game is kind of going. Good.
Yeah, his blockade, he's put so much into that blockade. I mean, all those supply depots and everything. And that's that would be a pretty big ridge to try to cover. Because, there's a lot of space for me to drop guys over the ridge there. So that is, I guess a mistake for him to put so much into that blockade.
Yeah, it appears that way.
But, that is one thing that makes this an interesting game. This isn't a typical game for me. I'm not used to taking units and ferrying them across a ridge there. I'm used to using my ramp, to get places.
But it does look like you have pulled ahead in the supply count so far, 113 to 66.
Yeah, so doubling.
But it does look like, ouch, that probably hurt. So, it looks like this will probably be cleaned up. A good deal of damage has been done. There are some reinforcements coming in here, but there are 2 siege things that I suspect will probably take care of this.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's less time he can mine. And he's just looks like he's only now building the academy to get a ComSat. So
ouch, you're right.
So the Dark Templar have proved quite useful.
He surely should have done that earlier. I didn't actually realize that until you just pointed it out now. He only has the towers for detection.
Yep, so no more no more wall in, so can just waltz right in.
Yep. So I think I asked you before. You said that you hadn't really started playing until Brood War had come out. I think your first event was WCGC 2000.
That's the first tournament that I remember playing in.
And just to clarify, that is the World Cyber Games Challenge, which is the first WCG World Cyber Game event in 2000. But you can go ahead.
Yes, yeah, for some reason that very first year they called it the World Cyber Game Challenge instead of just plain old World Cyber Games. Right. So the qualifiers for Team USA was in New York City in 2000 for that. Well, I don't remember if the qualifiers were in 2000, but for the 2000 event. And I don't remember doing any tournaments before that. I mean, maybe I'm just forgetting, but that's the first I remember.
So it looks like he's at 42 to your 73. You have no resources left, but it looks like you're starting to take out all of his production here. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of a army left for SuperCondomUser, except for the army he's left in front of your base that has been kind of useless.
Yeah.
They've kind of been taking a smoke break this entire time.
Yeah, so I mean, if he had, that was a nice containment he pulled off at the start. So I mean, if he had been faster to retreat from that containment, maybe things could have turned out differently.
So the first game, looks like for resources you did outmine him, which may have been what gave you that little extra edge. To actually have taken that game out. It looked very close. It was very much like if that push had failed, you would have lost, as you were basically out of resources and dead at that point.
Yeah, perhaps so, yeah.
So that was game one. Do you have any other thoughts or anything else you remember from it? Interesting moments that might have been triggered in your mind?
No, I remember I was in college. I remember it was in my dorm room by myself. My roommate wasn't there, fortunately. My roommate was an electric guitarist, so I remember it was nice that I had the room to myself. I'm sure I was excited and thrilled at having won game one.
Yeah, so I actually know that this game took place on the 5th of April in 2002, which was a Friday. And I fully expect you to tell us exactly what you had for breakfast, what the weather was like. Was it sunny outside? Was it kind of gloomy?
No, I appreciate. So that means that must have been, the spring semester of my freshman year in college. I don't remember what the weather was like. I was in Southern Illinois, so whatever April was like in Southern Illinois, and this was 2002, right? So I was in the same dorm room a year before for 9/11, but I don't remember like I do on 9/11 exactly what happened that day, other than I remember where my computer was, what wall my computer was against in my dorm room, but All
right. Yeah, it was quite a while ago. 15 years.
Yeah, it's hard to believe.
So that was the first game of the series. That's correct, right?
Yes, that was the first game, and so I don't remember how many of the matches were best 2 out of 3 in this tournament, but at least in the grand finals, and I know at least in the semis, because I know the semis at least were also best 2 out of 3, but so this is a best 2 out of 3 match.